What's up, my senors and senoritas? This your boy Vo Reason from VoLife, and today we have another episode of Thoughts of a Blerd. And no, I do not know what episode we are on. We're just gonna rock this thing out. Like I said, I've been doing this thing like every so often. I used to do it like every at least once or twice a week, but I'm gonna scale back a bit so I can actually have not only things to talk about, but I don't want to kill you guys to death with a long episode. So I'm just bringing these like every so often, something casually anyway. But today I wanted to talk about, because I had a very good idea, and if I didn't have this idea, I wouldn't have an episode. But the idea was being a millennial. I wanted to talk about that. I'm sitting down meditating and I'm thinking to myself like, man, we're really in a whole pandemic still. And I'm 34. So what they say, I had to pull it up. A millennial is the years born from 1981 to 1996. And I was born in 87. Gen Z is basically 97 to 2012. And Gen X is, 1965, 1980. I'm right before Gen X, actually, by 7 years. Sometimes I kind of feel like I'm supposed to be in that category because I feel like, people that were born in like 96, 97, to me are still kind of like young because I'm 87. So it's a lot of stuff that I might know about in the 90s that happened in the early 90s that I remember and they wouldn't remember. Like Power Rangers, when Power Rangers first came out, I think that was like, 96? So if somebody was born in 96 or 97, it's a lot of stuff that I will remember that they wouldn't. I still remember Atari, I still remember Atari when Nintendo first came out, when Sega first came out. That's like another thing, like as a millennial, like I feel like we've seen so much, like not even just like this pandemic. We've been through a black president. We've seen a black president in our lifetime. Like that's just, to me, just like amazing, like perfect time to be born. I was young. I was like, what, maybe 18, 19, or was I 20? It was just like, to see that, especially at a young age, to actually like capture that in for the whole, 2 terms is just amazing. Like if I was born any other time, I wouldn't have seen it. 9/11. 9/11 was like, rest in peace to everybody that, that passed away. And, it was a sad event. Seeing it on TV, had to deal with it at our schools, seeing how everything changed as far as like the airports and national security, how we look at, third world countries and everything else, our safety, small things too. I was sitting here thinking about like TVs. Like when I was young, we still had black and white TVs. I'm not gonna hold you up. Still had to crank it with the wrench. We had the hanger for the antenna. Like, like tell me, like, we wouldn't live in old school. Like small black and white TVs. Like, and it wasn't even nothing new. Like we had color TVs around the house, but we had extra black and white TVs for our convenience. Trying to find a channel between 2 and 3 sometimes. Playing our video games on channel 3. Seeing how TVs are now, like that's just it's. If you think about it, like now it's like, okay, 4K, TV, blah, 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 3D TV, it's all curved. But coming from where we all came from, like millennials, like if you go back and really think about it, like that's like purely still amazing. Like the big screens TVs we seen were these big juggernaut TVs that were not thin, like they were thick. Some really thick TVs that brought you, decent color, very good color back then. I'm saying decent because how you look at it now, of course. But like, I remember my granddad had a big giant TV with these big buttons on it, remote probably as big as your hand, And these days it's like, if you got a TV, you're probably just watching Netflix on it anyway. It's just crazy sometimes if you really think about it, like how far technology has really came. Another thing, like how our parents were like back when we were young, like how they, it's like, I feel like adults back then actually were adults, especially like compared to how kind of like how we are now. Like a lot of people still tell me like, oh, you act young. I can't believe you're, in your 30s or anything like that. It's just like, hey, I am who I am. But back in the day, it's like when you saw someone my age, they're just so distinguished, it seemed like they just had it all together, parents these days, their kids, they know all their business, You know, they know about like certain drugs and stuff like that. Mostly it's not their fault, but it's the way the internet is these days. It's like you can't really hold anything from children these days. Like they know about sex, they know about murders, you know, random and senseless killings, drugs, because money, sex, drugs, you can't really get away from it. You couldn't get away from it back in like the 90s, but at least like the parents were able to like control away from the children. Like when my dad and his friends would like be partying like in another room, send me away. Now I know that they were smoking weed, but back then I didn't know. I thought it was just bedtime, or I thought it was just like, okay, it's grown up time. I didn't know what the heck grown up time means. Grown up times means they about to go blaze and get high as a kite. So like, I feel like you don't have that these days, like that barrier between your children and the rest of the world of the stuff you don't want them to see. Like my 14-year-old daughter, she talks to me about a lot of stuff I didn't even like think about, like not saying like in a negative way. Like she's very advanced. So that's one good thing about the way the internet is, because like if you're using it for the right thing, YouTube, Google, all this information at your hand that we didn't have back in the day. Like my daughters are like so much more smarter than I am. Like my youngest daughter, like she wants to start a lemonade business. Like sadly, she wanted to do it in the middle of the pandemic when it first started. Though it was a good idea, I couldn't do it because, that's when COVID first happened. I didn't want anybody to get sick. I didn't think anybody was going to buy it anyway because everything was going on. We were in lockdown, stuck in the house, but that's a whole nother story. I feel like the streets, like especially like in Detroit, like where I'm at, and maybe this is how this is all over the world, maybe, but I feel like when I was younger, I was able to walk to school like with no problem. Me, my sister, my brother, even my younger brother, we all were able to walk to school even at different times. No thought about it, we were getting there safe. No thought about it, we were coming home safe. We didn't have to walk in groups. And when we saw people on the way, I feel like the streets were a lot safer back then. I don't know what it is now. Maybe because a lot of the violence and a lot of the crazy stuff that is happening on the world, of course, the media, that's all they're going to show. Like of course, it's all that we're going to see. But at the same time, it's still true to the fact that, I'm not going to send my daughter to walk to school these days. Hell to the no. Not even if I had a son. Like, nope, not going to happen. I wouldn't even want my son, like, to be, like, running these streets or in these streets these days. Especially like how I was when I was younger. It's too crazy out here. So that's just another thing. Like, even like walking to the store was just like no problem. Like, stuff was so much cheaper. Could you imagine back in the day, those small bags of chips? You can get 4 of those. I repeat, 4 of those. One bag of chips was a freaking quarter. Could you imagine? Now you probably get what, $2 for $1, and even if they sell that now, mostly is air. You're basically buying air. Stuff was just like so much cheaper, but then cost of living was cheaper. That always kind of fluctuates, but it's still crazy sometimes when I see gas prices and how they used to be like 98 cents to what they are now. Jesus Christ! Like now, even when I used to smoke, like cigarettes used to be like what, $5? It's like 7 or 10 now. Good thing I don't smoke anymore. That can be another episode of when your boy Bo Reason from VoLife was a Newport head. Oh Jesus, I'm so happy I don't smoke those anymore. It took a while. Of course, we gotta talk about the cell phone with the millennials. Now, one thing I wanted to bring this up is because, like, first of all, my first phone was a flip phone. A flip phone that wasn't touch, had lots of buttons on there. I thought it was the best phone ever. Seeing how phones are these days, like even like we started, like when I was young, I still remember car phones. Like they were like humongous, and if you did have a cell phone, they were big. Like you walking around with this. Hello, like Jesus Christ, like phones used to be so having a cell phone was not something you had to have, something that it was more like a luxury, and even if you saw it, it looked more like a walkie-talkie. We had cordless phones that were like ahead of its time. In those days, like phones you could just place on the floor and just hang up, you just pick it up and it'd be on. It's crazy, like how the house phones have died. Like, who the heck has a house phone like these days? Like my granddad had one before he died. Rest in peace, granddad. But after he passed away, my grandma got rid of it. And I still remember that number to this day. I really feel like with millennials having the best of both worlds, that we use our internet and our social media a lot smarter than like what they call it, the Gen X, the people that were born after us, that were born into it. I feel like because we have seen so much as far as like when we were growing up, way before Black Lives Matter, you know, there was like real protesting, people standing up for what they believed in without social media. So I feel like a lot of times that, personal opinion, but the people that were born into social media, born with the internet, that's like the only way they kind of protest, when you can actually go out there and actually try to make a change within the world without, let me just tweet this and put a hashtag, let me just repost this pic and think, you know, it's all good or whatever. And it's just like, what are you really doing with that? So I think there's different ways you can do it on the internet to make a change. And I feel like a lot of millennials know about that. I feel like they really use the internet probably the best is us millennials, because people that are born before us too, don't get me wrong and don't take this offense, but a lot of people are like, you know, their grandmas, they're asking me how to work this and that. They don't really know how to use technology the way we do. So I think that's like a downfall for them as far as like them using the internet, and opposed to people that do know it, like, you know, people at the Gen X, they know how to use it, but that's all they know how to do. They don't go outside. Like, I remember going outside, having to come back before, you know, curfew, before the lights came on. We actually played outside. Like, you don't, I mean, I see it sometimes in my neighborhood, like, bless their mothers and their fathers, like they let them play in this neighborhood, because it's like, you don't see that. You just see kids on their tablets, you know, on their cell phones, Roblox, YouTube, you know, it's all cool and all, but it's just like, when you go get some fresh air, like, your body is not meant to, you know, just be cooped up in a house doing that every day. I would hate to see what their knees look like when they get my age. Like, my knees hurt, but at least I ran. At least I got a good sweat in like every day. Then we get to like the black president, you know, Obama. We had to go through Trump, craziest president of all time. Sorry, Richard Nixon, he got you beat. You were just as corrupt, but dude was insane as far as Trump. Too bad they didn't have Twitter when you were alive, Richard. You were probably killing just like him. Then, like where we are now with this pandemic, if you were to pick a lottery of when to be born, we must have hit the lottery of drama. Like, we've seen so much drama, like, within these whole, like, the whole time I've been born, like, to now. Like, it's been a lot of crazy stuff. Like, I know it's a lot of crazy stuff that's happened in history, of course. World War I, World War II. But I feel like this time right now is just, something is very just oddly strange about it. Like the whole pandemic, these conspiracies out here, the way the world is, the vaccine cars, having to get vaccinated. Like, the world is changing till it'll never be back to the way that it was before. And we're right dead in the middle of it. Like, the world will never be the same. Even if everybody gets vaccinated, whether you choose to or not, whether we all figure this out and move on today, tomorrow, COVID just goes away, it'll never be the same. It will never, just like when 9/11 happened, the airports, the world, our way of security, the way America and the whole world thinks about their safety, that will never be the same. This can be like a whole soap opera for aliens. Like, you really think about it. And like, as far as like TVs too, like video games have come like a long way. I remember playing my Atari on Channel 3 on a black and white TV, playing my Nintendo 64, thinking like, oh my God, Donkey Kong 3D, like what the fuck? I was just like seeing something in 4K on my PS5. I'm still amazed, but it's just like, it doesn't have that same thrill anymore. Like, as you get older, it's like, okay, you kind of expect stuff to look like over the top. I feel like us millennials, we've been through a lot. I've seen some hate comments, hate videos about, oh, millennials, we expect the world to be given to us. Like, no, we don't. Like, we are working for this just like everybody else. Probably a little bit better, because like I said, as far as like the internet goes, we work it a tad bit better than someone who was born into it that doesn't know anything about the outside world except for the internet, and more so than your grandmama who doesn't know how to work TikTok. So don't tell me that we want stuff like just handed to us. Because when we get old, all those baby boomers are sucking up the goddamn Social Security. That's a whole nother video I don't even want to talk about, because right now I'm just ranting on the fact that somebody had a nerve to make that video. And no, I didn't watch your video. I didn't watch your video. I just saw the title and I instantly got offended. On that note, I'm going to end it here, my senors and senoritas. How about you guys? Let me know how you guys feel about the stuff you've seen of your lifetime. That's pretty much what this has been about. Not just like me being a millennial, but if you guys can relate, let me know what you think. If you're not in this generation, let me know what generation you're on. Let's chop it up. Let me know. On that note, my senors and senoritas, this has been another episode of Thoughts from a Blerd, and I hope you guys are staying safe, staying positive, and staying woke. And on that note, on this lovely October, remember to have fun on Halloween. Adios. Peace.